Welcome to the Accounting Technology Lab, brought to you by CPA Practice Advisor, with your hosts, Randy Johnston and Brian Tankersley.
Welcome to the Accounting Technology Lab. I'm Randy Johnston with my co-host Brian Tankersley, and we're very pleased to have a guest today, Nick Chandly, who's been one of the founders of Forwardly. Now, we've had sessions about Forwardly in the past, but I thought there was a significant enough collection of updates to the platform that it was worth you stopping to take a further review. Now, if you've been doing entries and you've been paying attention to some of the fees that people are charging, one of the attractions to Forwardly is their low cost availability and their integrations with a variety of platforms, including QuickBooks Online, Xero, FreshBooks, and more. I happen to use the product with Zoho Books as an example. And as this year follows on, you'll see probably more availability. So, Nick, welcome to the program. Would you like to give listeners a little bit of your background?
Sure. Thank you, Randy and Brian, for having me on this podcast. I really appreciate it. Yes, I'm Nick Chandly, CEO and co-founder of Forwardly. I've been working in the accounting space for over 2 decades now. Randy, you might remember that we connected the first time when I was the CEO of Welcome Networks. And we built one of the largest IT consulting company in Canada at that time that was providing virtual desktops and IT services, securities, and software integrations to accountants, bookkeepers, and accounting firms. We sold that business, and now I am fully focused on Forwardly, which is an accounts receivable and accounts payable system for B2B payments. We connect with all major accounting systems, like you mentioned.
Yeah, so knowing that that's the case, you're absolutely right. I do recall our first meetings, and in fact, I don't know it in fact, but I'm pretty sure that Brian may have used Bitcoin to pay for one of our get-togethers when we were over in Vancouver. I'm pretty sure that I have that recalled correctly. And yes, so you've got this nice technical background, but when you were talking about trying to evolve and create a payment system, it's a little different handling the Canadian banking system where you've only got six major banks or whatever it is, compared to the US system where we have between 15 and 20,000 commercial banks and about 30,000 credit unions. So we have a very Byzantine system here in the United States in terms of these, systems that are out there. So what was your goal initially when you were trying to create this payment and receivable system?
Yes. So what we see, just to clarify, Forwardly works only for US businesses, US businesses who want to send money to another US business or want to receive money from another US business. Yeah. So what I learned working with the accountants and their clients that managing cash flow is a huge problem. Okay? For businesses, businesses want to get paid on time, and they want to pay their suppliers also on time. Okay? And what we saw that, you might know this, Randy, we were founded almost at the same time the AI emerged in the space. So we were founded almost 3 years ago, and our design consideration and our architect is very much focused on the AI, APIs, and automation. We believe, using these technologies, we can bring a lot of efficiencies in the workflow that are being used by businesses, and accountants can help them in automating some of those processes. Very different design considerations, and we believe this is the new way to make bill payments, or to building some kind of interconnected system, where accounting data flows from one accounting system to another system, or where AI can read your invoices and bills automatically and code them accurately and approve them too. So the simple use cases can approve them too. So those are the kind of ideas we had in mind, and we are very excited to implement most of them, and the process is ongoing right now.
Yeah. So Nick, You may or may not recall that Brian and I first started teaching client accounting services back in the late 90s. So, in fact, I taught that course this week. And recommendation has typically been to bill your services in advance, commonly on the 25th of the month before the services are performed. And so you actually have a fairly nice recurring billing system inside Forwardly right now. And for many of you who have client accounting services clients, rather than paying the increasing fees that we're seeing from Intuit and others, Forwardly has been kind of a go-to recommendation for me for some time, simply because you're very low cost alternative on this, and basically don't really see any reason for most businesses and most CPA firms to leave that type of money on the table.
That's very true. If you are overpaying for your payments to QuickBooks or anyone else, you should definitely look at Forwardly. And we take it to the next level too. Like we have these auto collection agents for payments. They are eliminating all the bad debts or the delays. Trying to wipe out all those delays that are tied to those payments. Where we collect all the banking information from your customers, send them reminders, and automatically collect the payment and deliver it to your bank account. So not only you save money, but you save the time as well.
Yeah, that makes good sense to me. Now, talk to us a little bit about your AI innovations, because, as you've already mentioned, have been in the market about the same amount of time that a lot of the AI innovation has been occurring. And of course, at this point, we're 3 years plus into ChatGPT, and have evolved from the 3.5 to the 4.0 to the 5.2 models. And of course, Gemini's come along and made a pretty significant announcement and release of their models, and we see many things going on. This is not an AI session for our listeners, but it is fascinating for me to watch the transactions occurring with Intuit and Disney and many others trying to get a position. And I don't mind our listeners knowing that there is a class action lawsuit on copyright infringement with Anthropic, of which I applied for my portion of that today, because I am an author of books, and one of my books was hoovered up in the web crawl, if you will, and I do see my intellectual property incorporated that way. So I'm taking that little side bent, because this whole copyright infringement on AI is a big deal. But what are you using AI for in the Forwardly world?
Yes, so we're using it in a lot of ways. I just briefly talked about on the AR side, but if we have bigger use on the AP side, sending reminders, those kind of things are very common. We all have seen ChatGPT and other players in the domain. But the way we look at we use the AI in our platform is a bit different. So there are few elements. If you look at the bill pay section, so there are 4 or 5 major steps or major things that you need to handle. Okay? First thing you need to do is you need to capture the data or capture the invoices that are coming to you very accurately. Whether those are 200 bills or 2000 bills, we want to make sure they are being coded correctly, they are assigned to right chart of accounts, and that process has been automated. We read the data by line items. We are not using OCR or those kind of things. It's a pure AI-based integration that uses Claude at the back end and other backup systems as well. So we have been able to code the transaction very accurately, not the second time or third time, but the first time as well. Because we have data from your books, we can see in the general ecosystem what's happening. And now we're able to code the transaction very accurately. That's the first thing. Second thing is approval. Traditionally, what we see, Randy and Brian, how AI evolved in the past, AI was helping you to do your work. Okay, it was advising you, it was guiding you. but we are taking a step forward. We are doing the work for you. Yeah. So now, let's say you had an invoice from a supplier that you have been receiving for last 3 years, and the amount is same, a frequency is same, and the vendor name and the fraud check, all that came clean, and it doesn't need to go to those three approvers. We, our system automatically approve those invoices and make the payment. That's how it is. You as a approver, all three of them, you are going to get notifications in the app and the email that this has been done. Yeah. So AI has brought big advancement on the AP side. So work is being done for you more or less automatically. You are still in the control. So I believe AP is working more like a self-driving cars, like Waymo. Yeah. Uh,
Mhm.
I I was in Waymo just I guess last month or month before, and I loved it. Once you start using it, you are not never gonna go back to Uber or taxi, those kind of systems. So similar to those self-driving cars, you have to set up and configure it once. You have to provide it some guidelines under which it can operate. But think about the time in that your invoices are coded accurately, they are approved automatically, you are just being notified, and if you don't agree, you can always step back in. Okay? So you are always in control. You have full transparency and visibility, what's happening, why it happened. Those kind of decisions are being made by AI on our platform. Yes, yeah, approvals are there, and then we need to make sure, where the payments are being made on time. We offer only electronic payment methods like ACH or fast ACH. We were the first company to offer real-time payments or instant payments where you can wait to the last minute. Let's say your invoice is due on 30th, you can wait till 30th to make the payment. Those kind of functionality we have in our system. And last thing we have is the awesome vendor management, where we collect vendor information, their name, address, the purpose, what the services they provide, any kind of agreement you have with them, the payment terms, currency, all that kind of information that you need for your W-9. We also collect W-9 automatically from your clients. All that work is powered by AI, and it's all about eliminating time and bringing efficiency. But there's one big difference here. Randy, I said bill payments haven't changed in the last 20, 30 years, but we are trying to change it through our forwardly business network. What we see in the if you are a micro business, it's okay. But if you are a good sized business or a low or mid sized business, the data, payment and the data, they are both important. Okay? And
Mhm.
right now, if you look back, there are a lot of fraud is happening, in the payable space. You get fake invoices that we try to detect. You get fake vendors, those kind of things we have seen, check problems we have seen, there are sometimes internal fraud, external fraud, we have seen all those kind of things. We try to eliminate it through our Forwardly business network. Okay, we
Mhm.
know you teach these kind of things, about BEC attacks, where you get a phishing email that seems to be coming from the CEO of the company or the key supplier. We are completely eliminating. How we are doing it? We are doing it by connecting these different accounting systems. QuickBooks has QuickBooks Business Network. Similarly, Zero has Zero Key Network, something like that. But this system, these are silo systems. They don't talk to each other. So data sits in there. What forwarding has done is we have taken it to a next level so that you can get invoices directly from all of your suppliers through our platform, and they will be every time 100% accurate. We are not going to face the hallucination that we find with OCR or AI vision models because data is moving directly from QuickBooks to Zero or QuickBooks to NetSuite. So data will be 100% accurate. So that kind of transformation is happening. So we have taken a very different approach than any other players that we see. So these are the kind of innovation that we are bringing on the accounts payable side by using AI and API and automation. And it's all about creating more time so that accountants can focus on what they are good at, offering those advisory services and helping their clients grow.
Yeah, I appreciate all that background and information. And realistically, I believe in the last session that we recorded about your platform, it was
Mhm.
really that you were among the very first to go live on the FedNow rails, which went live July 20th of 2023.
Mhm.
And,
Yeah.
being able to do that same day transfer of funds, in
Mhm.
effect, kind of that last minute ACH type approach is a big deal. And it turns out from our team here, Brian tends to teach a lot more of the internal controls and fraud
Mhm.
topics. So,
Mhm.
and both of us are involved enough in banking, know your customer issues, which
Mhm.
is also part of what you were laying out there. Well,
Yeah.
I think, Brian, I might turn to you and just ask if you have any particular questions for Nick, any things that you think our listeners should know in terms of what the platform can do or, other items like that.
So Nick, talk to me. It's a pleasure to have you here. Talk to me about what you're doing. Are you doing the invoice importing, the AI invoice importing? Are you doing that at line level or at invoice level? That is, are you bringing the individual items on the bills in, or are you just bringing in the total?
Thanks, Brian. Yes, so we are reading individual line items and their description and quantity, price, discount, taxes, all those kind of things. We are reading those line items line by line. But we have another improvement that is about to go live by end of this month, where we are that's going to be optional. Yeah. You don't want those 300 lines there. You just want one simple description and we are going to create that one using AI. So both options are available there.
Okay, now Randy mentioned that you're Canadian. Is the service available in Canada as well? Because I know some of the other bill pays are not.
Currently, unfortunately, it's not available in Canada. It's available in US only.
Okay.
But we have Canada in our roadmap and we hope to serve our Canadian customers. We do get a lot of inquiries from Canadian businesses and accountants as well.
Are you picking up the sales tax numbers off of the invoices too, I guess then?
I'm sorry, what do you mean by that?
Are you like the sales tax numbers when that's a line item on the bills? Are you picking that up at all?
Yes, you mean
Okay.
is the AI able to read the sales tax number or that kind of
Yeah.
information? Yes, we have all that information. And in fact, we read the logo, we can attach it to the vendor profile, name, email address, all that information that shows up on that document. We read it, whether it's a single page or 20-page PDF document, whether it's from one supplier or 20 suppliers, we can read all that kind of data.
Now, I've asked Renee Lacerte this of Bill.com, the founder of Bill.com, the same question, but what's the retention period on the source documents that are fed into your engine?
Currently, it's just 7 years, and we have obviously because we operate in the payment space and, there are some legal requirements and that we need to keep some of our data. That's gonna so that we need that data to help authorities with any kind of investigation or issues. But generally, we are going to keep the data for at least 7 years. Okay. That has been advised to us, but we are not 7 years old yet.
Now,
So
do you support payments via paper check for people that are Luddites and refuse to share their bank account information with you?
the the thing is checks. Even the federal government is trying to eliminate checks now, right? We are the only country that still focus on the checks. Australia, they completely eliminated, and there's many countries in the Europe, they don't like checks, but we love it for some reason or the other. But the thing is, checks are so expensive to send or receive. Brian, you have to stock them, you have to open the spreadsheet who's going to sign those one, and hopefully someone is going to receive the check on the other side. And how many times the AP teams, they're receiving those phone calls. Okay, where is my check? No, we don't want any
Well,
of those things. That's why
and
our
that
focus.
and that
Right.
makes total sense.
Yeah.
If the federal government can stop handling checks, except for the few inbound ones that they need to
Mhm.
get from trusts and estates and places like that, it totally makes sense that
Fully
checks
agree. Yeah.
should go out of the workflow.
Yeah, definitely. And in fact, those payment methods, they're so cheap compared to so economical compared to checks, right? The different studies shows that it costs anywhere between $9 to $20 to accept a check. Yeah. And it's very expensive. Why you want to do that one when you can accept the ACH payment in less than $1, 20 cents, 50 cents, all those options are out there.
And I'm
Good.
smiling listening to you guys go back and forth on this because for whatever reason, the IRS made adjustments on my filed returns this year. And
Hmm.
after October 15th, I received a paper check from the government, even though they had all my ACH information, which I thought was hilarious because they'd been paid via ACH, but they
It's
sent
it's
me a check.
they're turning a battleship, Randy.
Yeah,
They really are.
yeah,
You think about the scale of the change that represents in
yeah.
an organization that really doesn't like change. So,
Yeah, and,
But,
it's such a
speak.
legacy software too. It's very hard for them. If you look at, we haven't invested into IRS in upgrading the technology, and very legacy software, and very hard to make any change.
But I wish I would have been more close to my coin collecting self because I did notice that the pennies that were in the last strike were worth $800,000 for a set of three.
Wow.
So yeah, I think the collectors that were in the middle of that, getting those were in fortunate positions. All right. Well, Nick, I think we've got a pretty good feel for what you've done on the platform, how you've updated and so forth. I'm pleased for your progress. And, I knew when we talked originally that, you would put your best efforts behind this and get something quite usable. And in
Mhm.
this new world of client accounting services, where there's so much of this going back and forth, as you expand your footprint, interfacing with more systems out there,
Mhm.
we suspect you'll have even greater impact. Brian and I in other accounting technology labs have interviewed a number of different new platforms. And my
Mhm.
suspicion is that with your design and as you continue to I'll say stabilize and expand your system, you'll be able to interface new systems relatively quickly. So my expectation is that you are likely to become an ever larger influence in the market. So
Thank you, Randy.
yeah, so that said, Brian, any parting questions, thoughts from you?
No, it's a real exciting time. For those of you that aren't familiar with the FedNow technology, the near real-time ACHs, Randy and I actually did record a podcast, and I'll put a link in with the transcript, in with the stuff I submit to our editor to post, so that you can go back and learn more about FedNow and understand the new technology that's permitting this to go forward. But Nick, very exciting about what you got. Looking forward to seeing the accounting systems you add and the countries you add too in the near future.
So
Thanks for
Nick,
joining
Thank you.
us.
yeah, and Nick, any other parting thoughts from your side?
Not really. I guess we are on the same page here. We sometimes, we do feel some questions about AI, still early days, for many of us, and but I believe, we work a lot with AIs, and I know it's not going to replace accountants, and that's the same thing you guys talk about too. But it's definitely replace your experience, any kind of repetitive manual things, they are getting more and more automated. You are still in the control, yeah, but it's never going to replace your intelligence or creativity. So just embrace it, and future is bright based on the AI and APIs and automation.
Yep, it certainly is bright indeed. Well, we appreciate all of you listening in again today. We'll speak with you again soon in another Accounting Technology Lab. Good day.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for sharing your time with us. We'll be back next Saturday with a new episode of the Technology Lab from CPA Practice Advisor. Have a great week.